Alright, this week it's time to get into a card game that I've been meaning to get into and that I was originally came across as a kid, and it's called Marvel Overpower. It was first released back in 1995, and as you can see here, this card it is a guide to all the starter decks and booster packs that you could get characters in once you first first bought and everything. So like the starter decks are up here. So these are basically the heroes in a sense that you get each in a sense starter deck, and then these are the heroes and villains that you can pick up in the booster packs. And so as I go through the cards and everything, I'll show you like the hero cards that actually, and like the different types of cards as well in this game and everything. So these are the starter decks and booster packs in the first iteration of it, which was, as you can you flip the card over, you can see the actual, it was released back in 95, so this was first released almost 30 years ago at this point. So with that list, it does give you a list of like the actual hero cards, and so like these are the actual hero cards that you can get of the characters and everything. So like you got like several different like types of characters that you can get. So like a lot of these ones are in like the initial game that you can pick up and everything. So like the characters I'm showing here are just some of them. Like for instance, good old Iron Man, Deadpool, Thor, War Machine, Venom. Now they have, like, as you can see, 3 categories that they have, like energy, fight, and strength, and everything's based on a scale of 1 to 8. So like 1 being like the lowest you can get, and 8 being the highest that you can get. So like for instance, like with like Captain America, for instance, right here, he has the lowest ability and energy that you can get, but as you can see, he's good with fighting with a rank of 7 out of 8, and he's got the 5 out of 8 strength and everything. So again, like you can see, like for instance, like different characters like that have high abilities in each category. So like for instance, like Domino here, she was released in like the in the expansion. There's called like a Power Surge, which was the first one, so they can get them in that. And there's also like the Mission Control expansion that was later released. So as you can see, like a Domino has like the highest rating of 8 in fighting that you can get. The Hulk is one of the characters that has the highest ability of strength that you can get, and Magneto is like one of the characters that has the highest ability and energy of 8. So you can go about and like build like different teams based on like the different abilities and everything. So like you can build like one of the decks that like I've built is like a strength based team. So like for instance, each deck, you don't necessarily have to do it this way, but this is like a strategy that I've used. Like for instance, the reason why you want to do something this way with the strategy that I use is so that way you have characters that have like a similar abilities, so they can cover each other. So you're not like in essence having like maybe the Hulk and then Domino here with different abilities, and then like with the different types of cards. If you lose one, and you do draw cards that one has, that only that person can use, you're not in a sense screwed and throwing out those cards. So like this is like a decent strategy on how to build decks, is like getting characters that are similar in abilities. So like that would be like I consider like a strength based deck. And then like you could also do like the same kind of concept like with building like a fighting deck and everything. So like as I showed, Domino has an 8. You can also see Sabretooth and Wolverine here also have like level 8 ability fighting, and of course Captain America has 7. So that way, like if like for instance, like say I lost Wolverine in the concept of battling, I still have Sabretooth and Domino who have 8 fighting abilities, so that way they could use different types of cards that I'll be explaining now. So like your basic go-to cards are what is called power cards. So everything being based on the scale of like 1 to 8. The high, like in each one, you pretty much like in a sense like you have to have that ability to use. So like for instance, like Thor here, with having like as I'm showing fighting abilities, he has a fighting of 3, so he could only use the 1, 2, or 3 fighting cards. He wouldn't be able to use the 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So this is why you kind of want to get characters that have like similar abilities. So like the Domino, Wolverine, and Sabretooth combo that I showed, like all 3 of those could use this level 8 fighting card. So if I lost one of those in battling, the other 2 could still use that one. So these are your basic cards that are called power cards, and these are used for attacking and for defense. So in essence, what you would do is like for instance, like if you wanted to attack with like the fighting card of 2 here, your opponent would have the ability to either use they would have to use a power card of 2 or greater to be able to defend that, or in a sense block it, and that would, which in a sense would null that effect, that ability. So like how you defeat each character is each character has to take, in a sense, 20 points of damage cumulative, or there's also a thing called like a spectrum KO, where like with the fighting card here, they can also in a sense get the KO'd instead of taking 20 points of damage. They get a spectrum KO. They take 1 of each type of damage, so like the energy, strength, and fighting. So if they took a hit from each of those, that's what's considered a spectrum KO. So those are the 2 ways to, in a sense, defeat your opponent's characters, is by a regular KO of doing like 20 points of damage, or a spectrum KO of 1 type of each of the like separate power cards or whatever. So there are, and of course you have at the beginning of each turn, what you do is you end up like drawing like 8 cards. You shuffle your deck, you each draw 8 cards, and then like you have to sit there and like in a sense discard duplicates. So like for instance, like the 6 fighting card here, if you had 2 of them, you'd have to like in a sense discard 1 of them as a duplicate and everything. So you could get rid of that and say like, okay, well I'm going to keep duplicates and everything, but that's one of the rules that you can do. So like and of course that's just one type of card. There's also like what are known as special cards. So special cards, as you can see here, are in a sense character specific. So only that card can be used by that individual character. So this is like these are 3 special cards for Wolverine. As you can see, like each one has like a specific ability that can you can use. So like for instance, like if Wolverine had already taken damage and you pulled this card, you could take off like 1 of those points of damages that he took and everything. And of course he's also got this one that lets him do like a special attack or whatever. And as you can see on here, it says 1 per deck. So that means like if you get a card like this, you can only have 1 of those per deck, versus something like this which doesn't say that, which means you can have multiple ones of like the different types and everything. So these are like what's known as special cards that only that character can use. And so like for instance, like if you were to lose Wolverine, you wouldn't be able to use those cards in battle. If you were to be KO'd, whether it's the cumulative KO of 20 points or by the spectrum KO of taking 1 point of damage from each of the different types of power attacks that you can do. And of course there's also like what's called universe cards, and there's like in a sense 3 different types of universe cards. There's like the universe cards that let you add to your attack ability. So like for instance, these ones are like ones that where you have to have this, as you can see, to use. So you'd have to have 8, a 6, or a 7 to be able to use these cards. And like you would use these in conjunction with the power cards. So like for instance, if I had like the 8 to use here, and this is a +2. So if like Magneto or like Professor X or someone with an 8 energy use this, I could use this along with like a power card to, in a sense, make my attacks, or you could also use them for defense. You could make them more powerful. So like if, for instance, like with this 8+2 one, if I decided to use an 8 power card, I would add 2 to the 8 and get like a 10 attack. So like these help make attacks more powerful, but you can also use them to make defenses more powerful. So like for instance, you could use like if someone was attacking with this plus an 8 energy attack for a 10 total attack, what you could do is you could use the same one and use an 8 card to like defend that one, like a 10, it nulls out the 10, so like a 10 defense subtracted from the 10 attack would in a sense null each other. So these are ones that you add on to like the actual power cards. And then of course what you do is you also got like universe cards that like for instance, if you have like it says with these ones you can use them as either a fighting or a strength card, and these ones are 5 or less. So like for instance, like I'll use Magneto here for an instance. So like he has a fighting of 1, so since he has 5 or less in fighting, what he could use that he could use that like with his, you get like a 1 fighting power card, and in a sense boost it to a +5 type of deal for an attack or a defense. So those are how those universal cards work. So, and of course there's a third type of universe card, which is like a teamwork card. So these teamwork cards, what they work as is that you can either have, in a sense, like your 2 teammates, 3 teammates using that like to attack. So like how like you would set it up is like you have 4 characters per deck. So like what you do, and so like you can see Onslaught here with a slightly different ability of intellect, which I'll get into shortly. What I would what you do is how you set it up is you have like in a sense 3 frontline characters for like attacking, and like your reserve characters. So getting into like the cumulative or like a spectrum KOs, like if I were to lose like say Doctor Strange here to like a cumulative KO of 20 or more, or a spectrum KO of 1 attack from each, if I lost him, I would then move up Magneto from the reserve, and the reserve characters can't do in a sense anything until they move up into the actual front line. But like you have, and that's how like the decks are constructed, is like teams of 4. So like you can get back to like the actual like character guide, and that's why you can see the starter decks have 4 characters. So like you have like in a sense 3 frontline characters and 1 reserve, and you move up the reserve once you lose a character on the front line. So the teammate cards, as you can see, it's the same concept. You have to have at least that ability or greater to use. So there are teamwork cards that like this one takes a 6 or greater of fighting to use, and it acts as a level 6 fighting attack. And so what happens is like the two, like you can do 2 teammates use like different abilities. So like getting back to like the actual team or whatever. So like for instance, like if I had like the energy team right here, now this is obviously like a different type. But if I had a teamwork card of like say energy that was like a 6 or greater, I could have Professor X use the teamwork card, and then I could have Onslaught here use like a strength card to add into that, and then I could have Magneto use an energy card or like a fighting card. So like I could do strength and fighting, and in a sense spectrum KO 1 character with 1 of these attacks and everything. So like that's how like the teamwork cards are used for those universal cards. So those are like in a sense the three different types of cards that you can get. Power cards, which are like I said, like your basic attack and defending. Your universe cards, which range from stuff like this that gives you bonuses to attack and defend, and you have to have like a minimum to use, or like you also have universe cards like these where you have to have like a maximum in a sense to use. And of course, like you also, like I showed, the teamwork cards that you have same concept as like these cards. You have to have a minimum to use. So those are the basics, three different cards that you have: specials, universe, and power cards. And of course, like the actual like hero cards. These are what are called hero cards. Is the actual hero themselves and everything to represent the hero that's on your team. And they do have what's called like in a sense adventure totals. So like for instance, like you can have like in a sense missions that you do. So like each round, like you'd wager like, okay, I know I'm going to win this round, so I'll wager 2 of these. So like another way to win, well, one of the ways to win is like get all 7 of these venture cards into, in a sense, like the win pile. So like for instance, each round I decide to wager 1 card and I win. So it takes me 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and 7. I could, in a sense, win the game in 7 rounds with these adventure cards that these are known. And so that just adds like another aspect to the game that you can win. So like you don't necessarily need to play with these, and I tend to play without these. So these are just like, in my opinion, like optional, even though you do get them and everything. So you could just stick with like the power cards, the universe cards, special cards, and the hero cards that I went over already. So like and so those are like that's the basic overview of the game. So now like the 2 expansions that like I mentioned with Mission Control and with Power Surge, you have like different characters. So like Doctor Strange that I showed was in one of those expansions and everything. So getting back to like as we go dark, as you get back to the Onslaught character, you can see he has an actual ability called Intellect, whereas like if you see like the other ones that I have, like with Magneto, he doesn't actually have that. Now, one might ask, well, why does Onslaught have the Intellect ability and Magneto doesn't? DC came out with a card game, like an Overpower card game, like so you could play with the DC characters like Superman, Batman, Lex Luthor, Bane, Robin, like pretty much like the characters from the DC universe. And what they did is they actually added the Intellect ability, because like using Lex Luthor as an example, Lex Luthor is a character who was known for his intellect, maybe not necessarily for like his other abilities like energy, fighting, and strength. So they introduced in the DC expansion, in a sense, the Intellect ability. So that way you have characters that actually have like that are quite smart. Yeah, they have like they can use that actual Intellect ability. So the Onslaught character here, when the DC cards were released with the Intellect ability, the Marvel was like cards were like the Marvel side of it was like, oh well, hey, maybe we need to. That's a good idea. So let's expand on it. So it actually gives this like a 4th ability. So that way, like it expands the game even more. So now you have like 4 different abilities to like choose from. Now, with the expansion of this 4th ability, the Spectrum KOs still work the same. You need you still need 3 abilities to Spectrum KO an opponent, but now you have like 4 abilities to do it with. So instead of just doing the traditional Spectrum KO of energy, fighting, and strength, what you could do a Spectrum KO with is like maybe intellect, fighting, and energy, or maybe strength, intellect, and energy. So it opens up options even more. So it does. You do get, in a sense, power cards for the intellect cards as well. and the same kind of concepts works as before. So you still have a scale of 1 to 8, 1 being the lowest, 8 being the highest. And like I said, you still have to, in essence, get rid of duplicates every time you draw 8 cards and everything. Or like you could do what I do and just disregard that. So it all depends on how you want to play the game and everything. So like I said, this is a card game that I got into as a kid way back when it pretty much first came out, and I've just started recently getting back into it. So to end this, I'll show again like the starter decks that were first released. So if you're someone that's interested in actually getting into this game, and like I mean, I still enjoy this game even to this day. You can pick up like one of the starter decks, and so like what's great is it works sort of like with deck building. It works sort of like Magic the Gathering, is that you have like a minimum, in this case, of 55 cards you have to do with a deck, but there's no limit to how many you can have. So you could have like a 100-card deck. But of course, with deck building, there's all sorts of advantages to having a smaller deck versus a bigger deck, and vice versa. So with this list, what you could do is you could pick up like a couple of the starter decks. Like maybe you could pick up Clobber Time and start get like a strength-based team, and maybe Sworn to Protect, and use those characters as like a kind of like an energy-based deck and everything. Pick up a few booster packs just to get a few extra cards or whatever, so like you have a little leeway in building your decks and stuff, and then you can go from there. So for me, I've built like over the past year or so, like I've gotten like all these starter decks, and I got the booster packs, and so I pretty much have all the characters on this list, and like it does definitely give you like a lot more options if you do have all these characters, but it's not necessary to get started. So like all you really need to do is, like I said, get like a couple starter decks, maybe get a few booster packs, grab a friend. And this would be a great card game to get into, especially if like you've been playing Magic the Gathering or some other card game for years and you're looking for some kind of alternative. Especially if you're a big fan of like the comic books, whether it's Marvel or DC. Like I did mention that DC did release a version of this as well. So if you're into superheroes and the comic books and stuff and everything, so this is definitely like a good deck or a good card game to get into. Even though it is a bit dated, it's definitely well worth getting into.